So what you're looking at right now is the same content that we had in the EPUB and Kindle, the same HTML, in fact, just packaged up a little bit differently, and we've added jQuery Mobile in. So you'll notice that the subtopics all get these large buttons at the bottom of the page. Due to latency issues, you may not be able to see it, but there are actually slide transitions between the pages. This is one of those bling features that people on mobile devices are pretty used to seeing. So you get the nice animations. You get when you actually press the buttons, they flash appropriately. Things slide. You get all of these things right out of the box. You have your back button at the top. And in general, this just gives as close to a native feel on these mobile platforms as you're going to get without a huge investment of resources in creating an actual application. So let's go into a little more of the details of how this works. As I said, we use the same HTML for the EPUB and for this jQuery Mobile. In fact, this HTML is the exact same HTML and CSS that we had for the Cisco project on a desktop browser. All we did was we took that same HTML and CSS, cleaned it up a bit, and moved it into these different platforms. So you can see that with a small amount of work, you're able to get huge results. Remember that this jQuery and jQuery Mobile are separate projects. And let's point out how HTML5 and CSS3 are used here. HTML5 provides new semantic elements and a few extra attributes. In particular, it provides this thing called a data attribute. So a data attribute is used in the context of jQuery Mobile to pass information to the framework. You're able to say, I want to use different themes. If you notice that there were different background colors for the content and the headers and footers, that was all done by a single attribute added to the HTML saying, I want to use theme A in the header, and I want to use theme C in the body. What we call this is a declarative approach. You don't have to write any JavaScript in order to get these results. You don't have to, in fact, very often you don't even have to make any changes to the CSS. It's just a minor modification to the HTML itself. CSS3 is also providing a lot of nice features. I've mentioned the slide transitions. This is all done through a feature called animations and transitions, which is part of the CSS3 spec. These kinds of results on desktop used to be provided by JavaScript itself. The basic idea was JavaScript would take your page and it would it would run a loop and say, okay, every 20 milliseconds, I want you to move that frame 5 pixels to the left. And then after a second or so, that page would have completely moved off screen. That is very inefficient from a mobile perspective. That's going to, because JavaScript is an inefficient language for a mobile platform. It doesn't run nearly as quickly. Mobile platforms have weaker processors and they have weaker batteries. And therefore, you don't want to be wasting processor cycles just to get some kind of acceleration, just to get some kind of animation. So instead, CSS3 provides provides support for marking up the animations. And all of this is hardware accelerated. So not only are you not going through this inefficient layer of JavaScript, you're not even going through any layers of software. The hardware itself is able to optimize a lot of this. That means you have less CPU cycles being used, you use up less battery life, and your phone doesn't turn into a hand heater. So let's go back to that Cisco example. How exactly do we generate output from the DITA-OT? DITA-OT will provide you very nice XHTML output out of the box. That XHTML output can be modified very slightly in order to create this jQuery mobile output. Basically, what you need to do is add a script tag, add a link tag to the head of the page. You might want to strip out some content from your pages. You might want to make some changes to how related links are marked up so that you get that nice list at the end with those big buttons. Those are all fairly minor modifications. since you're getting XHTML out of the DIT-OT, you can just use a normal XSL transform to get those kinds of results. Now, when you're dealing, there is something important. This actually is not directly related to mobile. This is just a general comment on creating HTML output, which is that most browsers do not understand XHTML. Most browsers don't really understand the whole concept of self-closing tags or anything like that. All they care about is they look at your XHTML and they pretend as if it's HTML. So for 90% of the time, those two formats are identical and there's no difference. But there are actually a few things that can be problematic. One is if you have void tags. So if people are familiar, there's a tag called input, or there's the image tag. An image tag is not allowed to contain any content inside of itself. So for an input tag in HTML, it is not required to be closed. You can't, and in fact, you're not allowed to put an image close tag. On the flip side, every other element cannot be self-closing. So a bug that you can see often coming out of the DIT-OT if you put in your script tags badly is your entire content will disappear. And the reason for this is the script tag will in XML be self-closed. In HTML, self-closing doesn't mean anything. So as far as the browser is concerned, the script tag never closed. And therefore, the rest of the contents of your page are just considered part of the script, and therefore do not get rendered on the page. Another issue is in the HTML world, you always want to have a doc type statement at the beginning of your page. The reason for this is something called quirks mode, which is a really horrible part of the history of the web. But basically, Internet Explorer will display your page very, very badly if you don't have a doc type statement. So you want to put a doc type at the beginning. So it's a good idea to take your whatever XHTML output you have before shipping it off to a browser. Really run a sanitization step in order to fix these problems. We've written some tools at Suite that go out and do this automatically. You can speak to us afterwards if you're interested in hearing more about that. So basically, the idea with the DIT-OT is to just take your normal XHTML output and apply an extra step at the end to either create your EPUB or create your mobile site. There's a DIT for Publishers. I'm sure many people are familiar with it. DIT for Publishers is a set of plugins created by Elliot Kimber. It does include built-in support for Kindle. We've used that in the past on some projects. Other projects, we've actually just written the EPUB generating code directly. Whatever either approach works, the real question is there a complexity to warrant using DIT for Publishers, or is it a simple enough transform that pulling in an extra piece of technology will complicate things more? And we can provide guidance on that kind of a question.
Okay, thanks, Michael. At this point, I'd like to demonstrate a site that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Michael. I'm going to demonstrate a site that we built, or an application that is an example of a solution that was built ground up to support mobile devices as well as a full desktop view. This was built for one of our customers for particular use cases for their technicians. And the idea is that I think like many of you might need a knowledge base of information about your products, installation, configuration, etc. Some technicians are going on site. Sometimes they have an internet connection. Sometimes they don't have an internet connection. And when they get back, you would like them to offer input about what they did there, and maybe create knowledge base articles about how to fix particular problems, maybe make comments on documents that may have been problematic or need correction. So in the full view, if the technician or the user is sitting at their desktop and they want to find information about, let's say they're going on site and they want to find some information about what they're going to be doing, let's say they want to do a search, it will bring them to a search page, and they can go ahead and navigate through the search results. They have a ability to filter those results. You go ahead and look at the content to see whether it's the proper content that's useful for them. And when they find the content that's relevant to what they're going to be doing, they can go ahead and add it to a bucket. So this is something that's relevant to me. I can add it to my bucket over here. And then before they go on site, let's say they can go to their bucket and maybe produce a PDF of that output and print it out, or actually just create an EPUB of that information, and that EPUB would go and they can download that to their mobile device. EPUB, like we spoke about before. This is the content that's relevant to them. Now, this is on the full desktop view. But let's say the customer or the technician is at the customer site, and they have an internet connection, and now their browser looks something like this. Okay, so the site automatically morphs itself using the techniques that Michael mentioned to remove some elements of the screen that are maybe not relevant at this stage, or to reduce or eliminate the need for scrolling. The technician can come on site and say, okay, you know what, I'm doing an installation of a particular device. Let's say I'm working on this device here, and I'm doing installation. Go ahead and give me all of the relevant topics in the documentation for what I want to do right now. Of course, it's a little bit slow because we're broadcasting this webinar. Okay, it's going to go ahead and give me the search results right on the screen. Same thing as before, I can go in and check out the content that's useful. And right there on my iPhone or my iPad or whatever I have on site, I can go ahead and look at that content and do whatever procedures I need to do. Okay, you can also make comments on certain content that might be problematic. And those comments can be delivered back to the writer using an RSS feed or other types of methods. When I get back to the office and I'm at my full page view again, because I'm at my PC, I can go ahead and enter an article about maybe how I fix a particular problem, and so other people can, other technicians or other folks at my company can benefit from my experience. And I hand this back over to Bob.